Your sister earned it. Those 4 words echoed in my head as I sat in Robert Chen's law office, watching my father sign away everything he'd ever worked for to my sister Emily. The mahogany desk stretched between us like a chasm, covered with legal documents that would change our family forever. Emily sat there with her perfect smile, nodding as if she deserved every single dollar of the $2.3 million estate. What they didn't know was that I had been quietly funding their comfortable lives for the past 8 years. The Mitchell family had always operated on an unspoken hierarchy. Dad, Richard Mitchell, was a retired accountant who believed in traditional family roles with religious devotion. Emily, being 4 years older, was the golden child who could do no wrong. She was the responsible one, the family-oriented one, the one who gave him grandchildren. I was Sarah, the rebellious younger daughter who chose career over family, independence over obligation. This toxic dynamic didn't happen overnight. It started when Mom died in a car accident when I was 16. Dad was devastated, lost, and suddenly responsible for 2 teenage daughters. In his grief, he latched onto Emily as his emotional support system. She was 20, mature, already engaged to her college boyfriend Mark. She became the woman of the house, taking care of everything Mom used to handle. I became the afterthought, the difficult one who reminded him too much of his late wife's stubborn streak. Emily thrived in her new role. She made Dad's morning coffee, organized his medications, handled the household finances. She was rewarded with praise, trust, and eventually, financial support that would follow her well into adulthood. Meanwhile, I was expected to be grateful for basic necessities and understand that family resources went to the deserving daughter. The pattern became crystal clear during my senior year of high school. I'd been accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship for their marketing program. I was 17, excited, and naive enough to believe Dad would be proud. Instead, he sat me down at our kitchen table, the same one where we'd eaten countless silent dinners since Mom's death, and delivered the news that would shape the next decade of my life. "Sarah, we need to talk about college," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Emily's wedding is coming up, and Mark's still looking for steady work. They're going to need help getting started, and college is expensive." I remember the exact feeling of my stomach dropping. "But Dad, I got the partial scholarship. I only need help with about $15,000 a year. That's still $60,000 over 4 years. Emily needs a proper wedding, and they'll need a down payment for a house. She's starting a family, Sarah. That's more important than some degree you might not even use." Emily's wedding cost $50,000. It was beautiful, picture perfect, held at the country club with 200 guests. I wore a pink bridesmaid dress that cost more than my entire prom outfit and smiled for photos while my dreams crumbled. Everyone praised Emily for being such a devoted daughter, for staying close to family, for giving Dad the joy of grandchildren. I was the selfish one for even suggesting college was important. The systemic favoritism didn't stop with the wedding. When Emily and Mark bought their first house, Dad co-signed the mortgage and helped with the down payment. When their first child was born, he paid for the nursery furniture and covered Emily's unpaid maternity leave. When Mark lost his job during the recession, Dad covered their car payments and grocery bills for 6 months. Emily was building a life on a foundation of family support, while I was told to figure things out on my own. By 18, the message was clear. Emily was the investment, I was the expense. Emily contributed to the family legacy by producing grandchildren and staying close. I was the ungrateful daughter who wanted to leave Ohio and chase unrealistic dreams. The painful irony was that I desperately wanted to contribute, to make Dad proud, to earn the same love and support Emily received so effortlessly. But every attempt was met with skepticism. When I got a job at 17 working evenings at a local restaurant, Dad complained about the late hours and how it affected family dinners. When I started taking community college classes part-time while working, he called it a waste of money. When I suggested I could help with household expenses, he brushed me off, saying Emily already had everything under control. The defining moment came during a family dinner when I was 19. I had been working 2 jobs while taking classes, saving every penny I could for a real chance at university. Emily was complaining about their tight budget, how difficult it was to manage on Mark's inconsistent income. Without thinking, I offered to help with their grocery bill that month. Emily looked at me with genuine surprise, then laughed. "That's sweet, Sarah, but you don't make enough to really help. You're still figuring out your own life." Dad nodded in agreement. "Emily's right. You focus on yourself. Emily and Mark are building something real together. They have responsibilities you don't understand yet." That night, I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck to the ceiling years earlier, and made a decision. If they couldn't see my value as part of the family, I would prove my worth outside of it. I would become so successful that my contributions would be undeniable. I would build something so substantial that even Dad would have to acknowledge what I was capable of. The next 2 years were a masterclass in quiet determination, mixed with crushing disappointment. I worked as a server at a downtown restaurant, a retail associate on weekends, and picked up freelance social media work for local businesses. I saved obsessively, living on ramen and expired clearance groceries, wearing the same 5 outfits in rotation. Every dollar went toward my escape fund and online marketing courses that would give me real skills. My first attempt at independence was a disaster. At 21, I tried to start a small marketing consultancy, targeting local Ohio businesses. I had passion but no experience, enthusiasm but no network. I maxed out a credit card trying to fund the business, took on clients who couldn't pay, and made every rookie mistake possible. Within 8 months, I was $15,000 in debt and sleeping on a friend's couch. Dad's reaction was predictably unsympathetic. "I told you those internet businesses don't work. You should have gotten a stable job like everyone else. Emily never put herself in this situation." Emily, now pregnant with her second child, offered what she thought was helpful advice. "Maybe it's time to be more realistic about what you can achieve, Sarah. There's nothing wrong with a regular job." Their doubt felt like acid in my veins. Every "I told you so" look, every gentle suggestion to give up, every comparison to Emily's practical choices fueled a fire in me that I didn't even know existed. I declared bankruptcy, destroyed my credit, and started over with a clarity that only comes from having nothing left to lose. The decision to leave Ohio came suddenly, but felt inevitable. I was 22, working at a call center during the day and teaching myself advanced digital marketing at night. I'd been following several successful marketing agencies online, studying their strategies, and dreaming of a different life. One morning, I woke up and realized I had exactly enough money saved for a one-way ticket to Los Angeles and 2 months of survival expenses. I told my family over dinner on a Tuesday night in March, "I'm moving to California next month." I got accepted for an internship at a digital marketing agency. Dad put down his fork slowly. "Sarah, you can't be serious. You don't know anyone there. You have no money. This is just another one of your unrealistic phases." Emily jumped in with what she thought was sisterly concern. "California is so expensive, Sarah, and you're just now getting back on your feet financially. Maybe you should stay close to family until you're more stable." But I had learned something crucial from my failures. Other people's limitations weren't mine. Their inability to imagine success beyond the borders of Ohio didn't mean success was impossible. For the first time in my life, I didn't ask for permission, approval, or financial help. I bought the plane ticket that night and started planning my new life. The day I left, Dad drove me to the airport in uncomfortable silence. At the departure gate, he finally spoke. "I hope you know what you're doing, Sarah. California changes people, and not always for the better." I hugged him goodbye, carrying 2 suitcases and more determination than I'd ever felt in my life. "I'm counting on it, Dad." Los Angeles hit me like a beautiful, overwhelming tsunami. Everything was bigger, faster, more expensive, and more competitive than I had imagined. My internship at Morrison Digital Agency paid exactly nothing, which meant I was burning through my savings while living with 3 roommates in a cramped apartment in Koreatown. I ate peanut butter sandwiches for lunch, walked everywhere to save on transportation, and wore the same 3 professional outfits on rotation. But something magical happened in that chaos. I found my people. Morrison Digital was a mid-sized agency that specialized in tech startups and entertainment brands. The energy was electric, the work was challenging, and for the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who thought big dreams were normal, not naive. My boss, Rebecca Chen, was a creative director who had built her career from nothing. She was 35, brilliant, and had the kind of confidence I desperately wanted to learn. During my second week, she pulled me aside after I had stayed late to perfect a campaign presentation. "Sarah, you have good instincts, but you're trying too hard to prove yourself. The work should speak for itself." "I just want to make sure I'm adding value," I replied, exhausted from another 14-hour day. Value isn't measured in hours worked. It's measured in problems solved. Focus on becoming indispensable through your ideas, not your availability. Rebecca became my first real mentor, teaching me not just marketing strategy, but how to navigate corporate politics, negotiate contracts, and build the kind of professional network that actually opens doors. She introduced me to other successful women in the industry, invited me to client dinners, and slowly helped me understand that success wasn't just about working hard. It was about working smart. The transformation wasn't immediate. My first 6 months in LA were brutal. I made mistakes, missed cultural references, and struggled with imposter syndrome that felt overwhelming. But gradually, I started to find my rhythm. I learned to speak the language of ROI and conversion rates. I discovered I had a natural talent for understanding consumer psychology and predicting digital trends. 8 months into my internship, Rebecca called me into her office with news that would change everything. "We're promoting you to junior account manager. It comes with a salary and health insurance." I actually cried in her office. After years of financial instability and family doubt, I had a real job with a real future. That night, I called home to share the good news, expecting some version of pride or congratulation. "That's nice, sweetie," Dad said, his tone suggesting he was multitasking. "What exactly does a junior account manager do?" I tried to explain digital marketing, campaign strategy, and client relationships, but I could practically hear his eyes glazing over. To him, my career was still some mysterious internet thing that probably wasn't sustainable. Emily was more engaged, but equally clueless about what my job actually involved. "It sounds complicated," she said, "but as long as you're happy and paying your bills, that's what matters." Their lukewarm response should have bothered me more than it did. Instead, I felt oddly liberated. I didn't need their approval to validate my choices anymore. I had found a world where my skills mattered, where intelligence was valued over conformity, and where women like Rebecca proved that success was possible. By my first anniversary in LA, I had been promoted twice and was managing campaigns for clients like emerging tech startups and indie film studios. My salary had tripled, I had moved to a better apartment, and I was building the kind of professional reputation that opened doors. More importantly, I was happy in a way I had never experienced in Ohio. But there was one thing eating at me: my family's ongoing financial struggles. Despite all their criticism of my choices, I couldn't ignore the reality that Dad was living on a fixed income, and Emily's family was constantly stretched thin. Mark's job situation remained unstable, and they now had 3 children to support. So I made a decision that would define the next phase of my life. Without telling anyone, I started sending money home. It began small, $200 here and there to help with Emily's kids' school expenses. Then it grew to cover Dad's prescription medications and car repairs. Eventually, I was sending $2,000 a month to ensure my family never had to worry about basic necessities. I told myself it was temporary, just until Mark found steady work or Dad's Social Security increased. But months turned into years, and my silent financial support became the invisible foundation holding my family together. They never knew where the extra money came from. Dad assumed his retirement planning had been better than expected. Emily thought Mark's sporadic bonuses were more frequent than they actually were. The secrecy was partly practical. I knew they would never accept help from someone they still saw as the irresponsible younger daughter. But it was also emotional protection. If they knew I was supporting them, they might start to see me differently, and I wasn't ready to risk that vulnerability. It was easier to be the absent daughter who happened to be successful than the devoted daughter whose love came with receipts. At 25, I reached a milestone that should have been cause for major celebration. I was promoted to senior marketing manager at Morrison Digital with a salary that officially put me in six-figure territory. I was managing major campaigns for Netflix's emerging content and several Fortune 500 tech companies. Industry publications were starting to mention my work, and Rebecca was encouraging me to consider starting my own agency. But the promotion also meant something I hadn't anticipated. The financial burden of supporting my family was becoming easier to bear. What had once been a significant stretch of my budget became manageable, then comfortable. I found myself increasing the monthly support without even thinking about it, covering Emily's mortgage payments during Mark's unemployment periods and paying for Dad's hearing aids and dental work. The annual family visit that Christmas revealed just how successfully I had hidden my success. I flew home for 5 days, staying in my old bedroom with its outdated decorations and thin walls. Emily's kids were excited to see their mysterious aunt, who brought elaborate gifts and talked funny, after living in California. But Emily and Dad still treated me like the family member who had moved away to play pretend in Hollywood. During Christmas dinner, Emily mentioned their financial relief over the past year. It's been amazing how things have worked out. Mark's been getting better projects, and Dad's retirement fund has been performing better than expected. It feels like we're finally getting ahead. Dad nodded, cutting his ham with the precision of an accountant. I've been blessed with good financial planning. Your mother always said I was too conservative with investments, but it's paying off now. I smiled and complimented the meal, saying nothing about the mortgage payments, medical bills, and children's activities I had been covering. Watching them enjoy the security I provided while still seeing me as the impractical dreamer was surreal. But it also confirmed something important. I was succeeding on every level that mattered to me. I was building financial security for my family while creating the career I had always wanted. The conversation that changed everything happened on my last night home. Emily and I were cleaning dishes while Dad watched football in the living room. For a moment, we fell into the comfortable rhythm of sisters working together, and I let my guard down. "Em, can I ask you something?" I said, drawing a wine glass carefully. "Do you think Dad is proud of me?" Emily paused, her hands still in the soapy water. "Of course he is, Sarah. He just worries about you being so far away, living such a different life than what we understand. But do you think he sees me as successful, as someone who contributes to the family? You contribute by being happy and independent. That's enough." Her answer, meant to be reassuring, revealed everything I needed to know. In their minds, my contribution was simply not being a burden. The idea that I might actually be supporting them, that my success might have real value for the family, was literally inconceivable to them. Flying back to Los Angeles that January, I made a decision that would define the next phase of my career. It was time to stop hiding my success and start building something undeniably impressive. If my family couldn't see my value as a supporting player, maybe they would notice when I became the star of my own show. Rebecca had been encouraging me to consider starting my own agency for months. "You have the skills, the client relationships, and the vision," she said. "The only thing holding you back is fear of stepping out of someone else's shadow." At 28, I took the leap. Sarah Mitchell Digital launched with 3 clients I had cultivated during my time at Morrison, enough startup capital saved from my careful budgeting, and a determination to prove that the girl who couldn't get family support for college could build something extraordinary on her own terms. The first year was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I worked 18-hour days, lived on coffee and determination, and slowly built a reputation for delivering results that other agencies couldn't match. My specialty became helping established brands navigate digital transformation, and my approach, combining data analytics with creative storytelling, started attracting attention from major companies. By the end of year 1, Sarah Mitchell Digital had 15 employees and was generating $2 million in annual revenue. By year 2, we had landed contracts with Netflix, Apple's retail division, and Tesla's marketing team. The company that had started in my one-bedroom apartment was now housed in a sleek office in Manhattan Beach, and I was being invited to speak at marketing conferences across the country. The success was intoxicating, but it came with an unexpected side effect. The more successful I became, the easier it was to support my family without them knowing. What had started as a stretch of my junior account manager's salary became a negligible expense from my CEO profits. I increased my monthly family support to cover Emily's children's private school tuition, Dad's increased medical expenses, and even their annual family vacations. Over 8 years, I had quietly transferred over $180,000 to ensure my family lived comfortably. They believed Emily's careful budgeting and Dad's wise investments were responsible for their financial stability. Meanwhile, I was building a multi-million-dollar company while maintaining the fiction that I was just Sarah, the daughter who had moved to California to do something with computers. The cognitive dissonance was becoming harder to maintain. At work, I was leading strategy meetings with Fortune 500 executives, being profiled in business magazines, and managing a team of 30 employees. At home, I was still the impractical dreamer who had chosen career over family, independence over responsibility. But I had learned something crucial during those transformative years. Success speaks its own language, and eventually, even the most stubborn people have to acknowledge its voice. I had built something undeniable, and the day was coming when my family would have to reconcile their perception of me with the reality of who I had become. I just didn't expect that day to arrive through a phone call about a will reading, or that it would force me to choose between the family I had been quietly supporting and the future I had built for myself. 8 years of silent sacrifice were about to collide with a lifetime of being undervalued, and the explosion would change everything. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in March, interrupting my review of quarterly performance reports. Dad's voice sounded strained, older than his 68 years. "Sarah, I need you to come home. I'm in the hospital." The heart attack was mild, the doctors assured me when I arrived at Cleveland General 12 hours later. Dad was stable, sitting up in his hospital bed looking pale but alert. Emily was already there with her youngest daughter, managing the situation with her usual efficiency. She had spoken with doctors, handled insurance paperwork, and arranged for someone to watch Dad's house. "The doctor says it was a warning," Emily explained as we stood in the hallway outside his room. "His cholesterol is too high and he needs to make some lifestyle changes, but he's going to be fine." Relief washed over me, followed immediately by the familiar discomfort of being back in the family dynamic. Even in crisis, Emily was the responsible daughter handling everything while I was the one who flew in after the fact. The roles we had played for 30 years felt as fixed as genetic code. What I didn't expect was to overhear the conversation that would shatter my carefully maintained facade. Dad was being discharged the next morning, and Emily had brought him some paperwork to review while he rested. I was returning from the cafeteria with coffee when I heard their voices through the partially open door. "I've been thinking about the estate planning," Dad was saying. "After this scare, I want to make sure everything is in order." "Robert Chen has been great to work with," Emily replied. "The lawyer Rebecca recommended has made everything so simple." I froze in the hallway. Robert Chen was Rebecca's older brother, a estate planning attorney I had met at several industry events. But more importantly, Robert Chen was handling my family's legal work because I had recommended him to Rebecca, who had then suggested him to Emily. The 6 degrees of separation were colliding in ways I hadn't anticipated. "I've been thinking about how to divide things fairly," Dad continued. "The house, the savings, the life insurance. Emily, you've been here through everything. You've raised your children close to family, taken care of me when I needed it. Sarah chose a different path. Dad, Sarah has her own life. She's successful in California. But success isn't the same as family responsibility. You earned your place here, Emily. You made sacrifices to stay close, to be available when I needed you. Sarah made her choices, and they led her away from family." I stood in that hospital corridor holding 2 cups of cooling coffee, listening to my father articulate the narrative that would justify giving everything to Emily. The irony was suffocating. The money he was planning to leave exclusively to Emily included growth from investments I had been secretly funding for years. The house he was so proud to pass down had been saved from foreclosure twice by my anonymous mortgage payments. That evening, I sat in my old bedroom staring at my laptop screen displaying Sarah Mitchell Digital's latest monthly revenue report. $3.2 million in billings, a 30% increase from the previous year. I was 30 years old running a company that employed 38 people, managing marketing budgets larger than most small-town annual revenues. And tomorrow, I would sit in a lawyer's office and listen to my father explain why I deserved nothing. The will reading was scheduled for the following Thursday. Robert Chen's office was in downtown Cleveland, occupying the 20th floor of a gleaming tower that would have impressed me 8 years ago. Now, having worked with law firms representing Fortune 500 companies, it seemed quaint, but the emotional weight of the moment made everything feel surreal. Emily arrived with Mark and their 3 children, treating the occasion like a solemn family gathering. Dad wore his best suit, the same one he had worn to Emily's wedding and every important family event since. I wore a simple black dress from my professional wardrobe, feeling overdressed and underprepared simultaneously. Robert Chen greeted us with professional warmth, and I caught his slight double-take when he saw me. Rebecca had mentioned her successful agency owner friend Sarah Mitchell many times, but he had never connected the dots to Emily's younger sister. His office walls displayed diplomas from Harvard Law and photos with various political figures, impressive credentials that Dad clearly found reassuring. "Before we begin," Robert said, settling behind his mahogany desk, "I want to confirm that everyone understands this is the final version of Mr. Mitchell's will, as revised last month. There are no outstanding questions or concerns." Dad nodded firmly. "Everything is exactly as I want it." The reading itself was anticlimactic and devastating in equal measure. Dad's estate, valued at approximately $2.3 million, would be divided as follows. Emily would receive the family house, currently worth $400,000. Emily would receive the entirety of Dad's savings and investment accounts, totaling $1.6 million. Emily would be the sole beneficiary of Dad's life insurance policy, worth $300,000. Emily would inherit his car, personal possessions, and any other assets not specifically mentioned. I would receive his collection of accounting textbooks and a letter he had written explaining his decision. The silence in the room was deafening. Emily looked genuinely shocked, turning to Dad with wide eyes. "Dad, this seems... shouldn't Sarah get something more substantial?" But Dad's expression was resolved, almost peaceful. "Emily, you earned this. You stayed close to family, you gave me grandchildren, you were here when I needed you. Sarah chose independence over family responsibility. She chose career over relationships. These are the consequences of those choices." He looked directly at me for the first time that day. "Sarah, you've built a successful life for yourself. You don't need family money to be happy. Emily has responsibilities here, children to raise, a husband to support. This is how I can best take care of my family." "Your sister earned it," he said, using the exact words that would echo in my head for months. "She deserves to be rewarded for her devotion." I sat there, absorbing the complete erasure of my contributions to the family. 8 years of mortgage payments, medical bills, children's tuition, emergency expenses, vacation funding, over $180,000 of silent support that had enabled the very stability Dad was now crediting to Emily's devotion and his own wise investments. Robert Chen was watching me carefully, and I could see him doing mental calculations. He knew exactly who I was now, knew my company's reputation, knew the kind of revenue we generated. The disconnect between Dad's assessment of my success and the reality sitting in his office was creating visible cognitive dissonance. "Sarah," Robert said gently, "do you have any questions about the estate plan?" I looked around the room at Emily's guilty but grateful expression, at Dad's satisfied certainty, at Mark's uncomfortable silence, at the children who were fidgeting with boredom. These people had no idea who I really was, what I had accomplished, or how extensively I had been supporting the lifestyle they thought they had built independently. "No questions," I said finally, I understand completely. Dad smiled with relief. I'm glad you're taking this maturely, Sarah. I was worried you might be upset. Why would I be upset? I replied, my voice steady. As you said, Emily earned it. The drive back to Dad's house was quiet. Emily rode with me, clearly wrestling with the inequality of the inheritance. Sarah, I want you to know I never asked for this. I had no idea Dad was planning to leave everything to me. I believe you, I said, and I did. Emily had many flaws, but manipulation wasn't one of them. Maybe we could work something out. I mean, the house is so big for our family and the money. It's more than we need. Em, don't overthink it. Dad made his choice based on his values. You stayed close, you prioritized family, you made the choices he respected. I chose differently. We're both living with the consequences. That night, as I prepared to fly back to Los Angeles, Dad asked to speak with me privately. We sat in his living room, the same space where he had told me 18-year-old me that college wasn't a priority. I hope you understand, Sarah. This isn't about love. I love both of my daughters equally, but love and reward are different things. Emily sacrificed her potential independence to stay close to family. She deserves security for those sacrifices. What do you think I sacrificed, Dad? He looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Nothing, Sarah. You got everything you wanted. You have your career, your independence, your California lifestyle. You made the choices that made you happy. Emily made the choices that made the family strong. The conversation confirmed everything I needed to know about how my father saw me, my choices, and my contributions. I was the selfish daughter who had gotten exactly what she deserved. Success without family support, independence without family inheritance. Flying back to Los Angeles that night, I made a decision that felt both inevitable and terrifying. It was time to stop hiding who I had become and what I had been doing. The 8 years of secret support had bought my family stability at the cost of my own recognition. If they couldn't appreciate anonymous sacrifice, maybe they would understand direct consequences. 1 month later, the phone call came that changed everything. Sarah? Dad's voice was shaky, uncertain. I need to talk to you about something. What's wrong, Dad? The bills are piling up. I don't understand what's happening, but our financial situation has changed dramatically. Emily's having trouble with the mortgage. Mark lost his job again, and my medical expenses are higher than expected. The money doesn't seem to be stretching the way it used to. I was sitting in my Manhattan Beach office, looking out at the Pacific Ocean, managing the same company that had been quietly subsidizing his comfortable lifestyle for almost a decade. The irony was so perfect, it felt scripted. Have you talked to Emily about it? She inherited everything, right? She should be able to handle the family finances now. That's just it. The inheritance won't be available for months while the estate goes through probate. And even then, most of it is tied up in the house and long-term investments. We need help with immediate expenses. What kind of help? I was hoping, I know you're doing well out there, and maybe you could help us through this rough patch, just temporarily until we get back on our feet. I closed my eyes, feeling 8 years of resentment crystallize into perfect clarity. Dad, let me make sure I understand. You gave Emily everything because she earned it through family devotion. Now you want me, the daughter who chose career over family, to bail out the family financially? Sarah, this is different. This is an emergency. How much do you need? Well, the mortgage is $3,000 a month, and Emily's kids' tuition is due, and my medications. Maybe $5,000 would get us through this month. $5,000. I spent more than that on client entertainment expenses. It was less than my company's daily operating costs. It was a fraction of what I had been sending them anonymously every month for 8 years. I'll need to think about it, Dad. But Sarah, we really need... I said I'll think about it. I hung up and immediately called Robert Chen. Robert, it's Sarah Mitchell. I need to ask you something about my father's estate. Of course, Sarah. What can I help you with? Over the years, has your firm handled any financial transactions for the Mitchell family beyond the estate planning? There was a pause. Actually, yes. We've processed several large deposits and transfers. I always assumed they came from your father's investments or Emily's husband's work, but now that I know who you are, those transfers came from Sarah Mitchell digital accounts. I've been supporting my family anonymously for 8 years. The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Sarah, are you telling me that the financial stability your father credited to his wise investments was actually your doing? $180,000 over 8 years. Mortgage payments, medical bills, children's expenses, emergency repairs, everything they thought was lucky breaks or smart financial planning. And they have no idea? None whatsoever. My father just called asking for financial help because bills are piling up. Apparently, Emily earned the inheritance, but I'm supposed to provide the cash flow. Robert Chen was a Harvard-educated attorney with 30 years of experience in family law. He had seen every variation of family drama, every possible configuration of greed, manipulation, and dysfunction. But I could hear the genuine shock in his voice. Sarah, this changes everything about your father's estate decisions. He made those choices based on completely inaccurate information about his family's financial reality. It gets better, Robert. Do you want to know why I originally recommended you to Rebecca? I'm almost afraid to ask, because I've been paying your legal fees for the family's estate planning. The will that disinherited me was paid for by my company. The next day, Emily called. Sarah, Dad told me he called you about money. I want you to know I'm mortified. This isn't what I wanted when he left everything to me. What did you want, Emily? I wanted fairness. I wanted Dad to recognize that both of his daughters contributed to the family in different ways. But now that we need help, it feels wrong to ask you for money when you didn't inherit anything. But you're asking anyway. We're desperate, Sarah. Mark's job search isn't going well. The kids need so much. And I don't know how to manage money the way Dad did. Everything is more expensive than I realized. Emily, can I tell you something that might surprise you? Sure. Dad never managed the money as well as you thought he did. Your family has been living above your actual means for years. What do you mean? How do you think Dad afforded to help with your house down payment while maintaining his own mortgage? How do you think he covered Mark's unemployment periods while also paying for the kids' private schools? How do you think he managed medical expenses that insurance didn't cover while also taking annual vacations? Emily was quiet for a long moment. I assumed Dad had saved more than he told us about. Dad's savings were never enough to cover the lifestyle your family maintained. There was another source of income that you never knew about. Sarah, what are you saying? I'm saying that the financial stability you experienced over the past 8 years wasn't because of Dad's wise investments or Mark's sporadic bonuses or your careful budgeting. It was because someone else was quietly covering your shortfalls. Who? Me, Emily. For 8 years, I've been sending money home every month. Mortgage payments when Dad's fixed income wasn't enough. Medical expenses when insurance fell short. Children's activities and tuition when Mark was between jobs, emergency repairs, vacation funds, Christmas presents, all of it subsidized by Sarah Mitchell Digital. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Emily whispered, "That's impossible." $180,000 over 8 years. I can send you bank records if you need proof. But why didn't you tell us? Because I knew you would never accept help from someone you saw as the irresponsible younger daughter. It was easier to let you believe you were managing independently than to deal with the family dynamics of open financial support. Sarah, I had no idea. None of us did. I know, that was intentional. But if you were supporting us all along, then Dad's assessment of the situation was completely wrong. He thought you had chosen career over family. But really, you were choosing both. That's one way to look at it. Emily was crying now. This means Dad's will, everything he said about earning the inheritance, it was based on not understanding what you were actually doing for the family. Emily, here's what's going to happen. I'm done providing anonymous support. If Dad wants to leave everything to the daughter he thinks earned it, then that daughter can handle the family finances going forward. But Sarah, we can't manage without help. The numbers don't work. then maybe it's time for your family to live within your actual means instead of the artificially inflated lifestyle I made possible. Are you cutting us off completely? I looked around my office at the awards on the walls, the photos from client events, the evidence of a success built through years of determination and sacrifice. I thought about the teenage girl who had been denied college funding, the young woman who had left home with 2 suitcases and a dream, the CEO who had been building something extraordinary while secretly subsidizing the people who couldn't see her value. I'm not cutting you off, Emily. I'm just not hiding anymore. If the family needs financial help, we can discuss it honestly with full transparency about who provides what and why. But the days of anonymous support are over. What should I tell Dad? Tell him exactly what you think he needs to know. 2 weeks later, Dad called again. This time, his tone was different, uncertain, almost humble. Sarah, Emily told me some things that I find hard to believe. She says you've been sending money home for years. She's telling the truth, Dad. But why didn't you tell us? Why let us think we were managing on our own? Because you never would have accepted help from someone you saw as the selfish daughter who chose career over family. It was easier to let you maintain your narrative than to challenge your assumptions about who I really am. If what Emily says is true, then I made some serious mistakes in my assessment of the situation. What kind of mistakes? I thought you had abandoned family responsibility for personal success. But if you've been supporting us financially while building your career, then you found a way to do both. Is that what you think I did? I don't know what to think anymore, Sarah. Nothing makes sense if what Emily is telling me is accurate. I could have made it easy for him. I could have accepted his confusion as the beginning of understanding, his humility as an apology. But 8 years of being misunderstood had taught me something important. Real change requires real consequences, not just real recognition. Dad, here's what I think happened. You created a narrative that justified giving everything to Emily by portraying me as selfish and her as devoted. That narrative made you feel good about your decision, but it was based on incomplete information about both of your daughters. So what happens now? Now you live with the consequences of the choice you made based on the information you chose to accept. Emily inherited everything because she earned it. She can figure out how to manage what she earned. But Sarah, if we can't make the finances work, then you'll need to make the same kinds of difficult decisions I made when I was starting out. Maybe Mark needs to take whatever job he can find instead of waiting for the perfect opportunity. Maybe the kids need to attend public school instead of private. Maybe you need to consider downsizing the house or moving somewhere with lower costs. Those are drastic changes. Dad, I lived on ramen noodles and walked everywhere to save bus fare when I was getting started. I shared apartments with strangers and wore the same 5 outfits for months. Drastic changes aren't punishment. They're just reality for people who don't have family financial support. The conversation ended with Dad asking if we could discuss this more when emotions weren't so high. I agreed, knowing that no amount of discussion would change the fundamental dynamic. I had spent 8 years proving my love through anonymous sacrifice, and they had spent 8 years not noticing. 3 months later, Robert Chen called with an update that completed the transformation. Sarah, your father has been in touch about possibly revising his estate plan. He wants to create a more equitable distribution. What did you tell him? I told him that estate planning works best when it reflects long-term values, not short-term financial pressures. If he wants to change his will because he realizes he misunderstood his daughter's contributions, that's one thing. But if he wants to change it because Emily can't manage the inheritance he gave her, that's something else entirely. And what did he say? He asked if you would be willing to meet with both of us to discuss the family's financial situation openly. I looked out at the Pacific Ocean from my office window, thinking about the girl who had left Ohio with nothing and the woman who had built something extraordinary while loving people who couldn't see her clearly. The meeting Dad wanted would be a reckoning 8 years in the making. Robert, schedule the meeting. It's time for my family to understand exactly who I am and what I've been doing, and then we'll see if they're ready to earn the kind of relationship they've been taking for granted. The call ended, and I returned to reviewing strategic plans for Sarah Mitchell Digital's expansion into international markets. I had built something that would outlast family drama, something that belonged entirely to me. Whether my family chose to understand and appreciate, that was their decision. I had finally learned the difference between being needed and being valued, and I would never confuse the two again.